Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Tally. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I held myself hostage because you asked me to come on your podcast, which has already
demanded.
happened. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gave you no choice.
There
was blackmail. There was threats. There was crying. There was pleading. I was on my knees. I'm like, Garrett, please. It's been too long. It's like, I don't know, man. I'm pretty busy. I don't really need you these days.
You made him
I'm
do
really
that
successful.
for episode 8?
I am a big fan of quoting Denathrius, the only good thing from Shadowlands.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. You would have liked that raid.
I think I would have.
You really would have liked that
Yeah.
raid. Yeah. No. You would have been into that.
Because he grabbed the guy and he like threw him. I like that part.
Yeah.
The intro
cinematic. He'll crawl to me on your knees as a raid mechanic.
Oh, that's amusing.
Yeah. And you have to.
The best thing about Shadowlands is not, in fact, Denathrius. The best thing about Shadowlands, which is a World of Warcraft expansion for those of the audience who don't know.
Not to be confused with Shadowbringers.
But don't worry, we're not going to talk about that too much. But the best thing...
That's why you're here. We want to talk about it. We want to talk about the state of MMOs. The
best thing about Shadowlands is that it begins with an S. So every now and then, I can do my favorite troll tweet on the internet, which is to do a tier list, but then just put all of the expansions of World of Warcraft in alphabetical order on the tier list.
So everyone gets mad because Shadowlands is at the top.
Everyone gets so mad. So Shadowlands is obviously S tier, right?
Oh,
there it is. Wow, you found that
begins with
quickly.
an S, and then there's no A. There's no A, and then BFA and Burning Crusade are B, and by this point, anyone seeing the tweet is already fuming. Like, their minds are blown, they're red, their blood is pumping, they're typing, they can't hear anything. Their partner is sitting next to them going, I think that list might be in alphabetical order. They can't hear it, because all they can hear is the mechanical keyboard tap, tap, tapping as they write, you idiot, you scumbag. You're the reason WoW's bad, and that's it. So yeah, that's the best thing about Shadowlands is that it's a very unpopular expansion, but it does begin with the letter S. So when you do this incredible,
are we getting an A? It's War Within. It's Midnight, and then it's what's the last one?
The Last Titan.
Last Titan. Shit. Yeah, we're
which
still not
comes
getting
under
an A.
L.
We're still not getting an A.
But the
in
Butcher
the
in Here's
University
the
filing
Storm.
system.
The Butcher in Here's the Storm was sorted by T, which means Blizzard might use T as their sorting letter.
Oh, that's right. That was villainous. Yeah, because I was
just the kind of idiot thing they would do.
Looking for B.
I hate that.
That's the worst thing that ever happened to Heroes of the Storm. Yes, that is the absolute worst
I'm
thing that
so
ever
glad
happened to Heroes of the
Kotick's
Storm.
gone. They won't be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
No. Spencer, Burning Crusade. Burning Crusade. I know Spencer knows where it's at. You go to Spencer's house, it's all all just filed under.
There's no confusing name conventions with Blizzard Entertainment. You know, you say HOTS, everybody knows exactly what game you're talking about.
Yeah. But in Phil Spencer's house, everything's just filed under G for Game Pass. So
that is
every game goes in there,
including the biggest.
Anyway,
I've
got to on the screen now. Sorry.
So I do feel I'm doing a bad job as a podcast host in introducing you. So for folks that foolishly are unaware of you, Taliesin is a friend of mine, a new friend of Kyle's.
Hello.
One half of Taliesin and Evatel, famously from either Twitch or YouTube, depending on how you may consume content that you make, Tally. But you are, would it be disingenuous to say you are famously known for your coverage of the game World of Warcraft?
Yeah, almost exclusively so, to be honest. On our YouTube channel, certainly that's the game that we've always covered and that we continue to cover. On stream, we can mix it up a little bit more. And sort of branch out and what have you. But yeah, the channel tends to be all about the WoW.
Cool. And in terms of you and me working together, we used to have a podcast together. It was, I wouldn't say short-lived, because I've definitely had shorter-lived podcasts, but I've had a lot of others that were way longer-lived. But we had a show together called WoW Giller that started at the end of BFA in World of Warcraft. So it was a World of Warcraft podcast, and it was you and me basically rehashing things you probably already talked about on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, but with you as an excellent foil to work off against, which made it all the more interesting. It's like, you can shine a light from a torch, right, at a wall, which is what I'm doing on the YouTube channel, but you were a beautiful prism. And when I shone the light off you, it came out in all different rainbow colors of new opinions and insight, is how I used to think of it.
Yeah, it was a good time. And then I would go and rehash what we talked about on that show on the instance, and then we had
Yeah, and that was my way of being on the instance. It was 2 degrees of separation. It was like the Kevin Bacon thing, right?
you would infest my brain with your thoughts, and then I would bring them to the instance as you being the Trojan riding the horse that's shaped like Garrett. That's exactly
Yeah, that's right. I was inside you, as it were, infiltrating, waiting
Using
to
a
make
Trojan.
my move.
Using a Trojan. Let's be very
Waiting for
specific.
Scott Johnson and Patrick Beja to be asleep so I could come out of you and take over.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our Clips and Highlights channel. If you want to keep up with everything Kyle and I have going on, make sure you subscribe to the main Grinding Gear YouTube channel, which is where we actually do these streams. That's right, we stream right here on YouTube. Oh, and sub to the Grinding Gear podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, really any podcast platform. We're probably there. Thanks.
During like the whole kind of WoW exodus of Shadowlands, when Final Fantasy XIV started really taking off on the webs, and you didn't jump on that straight away.
No, I was
you
super
didn't,
late.
Garrett. I don't know about you, Kyle, but
you were already
it
playing.
took you a while to kind of get on with that, right?
Yeah, Kyle was already playing. I just wasn't that interested. It's like meme status now in our community. There's a video that came out 2+ years ago when Kyle and I were starting to we popped the seal on this YouTube project. And originally we were doing like a major gaming news per week, like kind of touching on different things. And this guy had failed to get me into Final Fantasy XIV for so long that he pitched me, what if we talk about the Exodus as a piece of news, because it is happening. And isn't that fascinating to you? Even you, Garrett, Mr. I just don't want to play that game. And it worked. I was like, you insidious bastard. So I started actually with interest researching the game or researching what was going on, why people were interested. But in that video, if you go back and watch it, there's a now infamous quote from me where I go, well, I'll tell you what I sure as shit am not doing, playing Final Fantasy XIV. And that is now, I'm kind of thankful for Kyle multiple times has complimented. He's like, dude, you take that so well. I'm like, it's hilarious, dude. It's so goddamn funny. Like, I'm not sure. I don't think we'd have, like, to a certain degree, I think it has created a storyline that like, I'm not even sure how, like, true it is. I think if I had stuck with the game long enough, I would have liked it anyway without having said that. But I think because there is that quote and people can dunk on me for it, now that I'm enjoying the game, I think it has given us a bump that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So, it took some convincing. I wasn't very interested. I didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy, and I'm not even sure. At the time, I was thinking, how much would it even have mattered if I had played Final Fantasy? Turns out a lot. There's so many references to other Final Fantasies in Final Fantasy XIV. It's kind of a Final Fantasy theme park in that way. But at the time, I was like, well, it doesn't matter because it's like an anthological series, and no two connect to each other unless they are an actual hard sequel or prequel, which is mostly just 7, but there's a couple others that got extra ones.
Your desire to be correct is immense.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, it just looks like another MMO. I've played other MMOs. I've played so many tab targeting MMOs that it's kind of hard to sell me on them now. And I'm feeling that way now about survival games after Pal World, because I rather enjoy Pal World. I'm having a good time with it, but I think I'm also done punching trees for wood. If I ever have to punch a tree for wood ever again, I think I'm immediately going to uninstall the game.
I watched that with interest because I remember talking to you in the after show and pre-show and stuff about of WoW Killer about Final Fantasy XIV, because in that space of time when I started making WoW videos, the reason I kind of did that was, as much as anything, because we were at the tail end of WoD at that time, of Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah.
For people who aren't familiar with WoW expansions, Warlords of Draenor was, as low as it had got in WoW at that point. It was a really slow releasing expansion. The patch cadence was terrible, like huge sways of time without any content at all. There's just not much to do. So I ended up making videos. But before that, I had jumped into a number of different MMOs to kind of play alongside it just to kill time. And I picked up Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2 and ESO as well. And
I mean, Heavensward? That was pretty early in post-Realm Reborn relaunch.
I'm not sure when I actually got to Heavensward, but it was current content when I did. So I think that's 2015, 16. I'm not sure.
You went shopping.
Good on my timeline.
You went shopping.
Yeah.
You did them all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, and like, and I loved Final Fantasy 14 was great. I really enjoyed it, and Heavensward is an absolute banger. And I played through the story of Heavensward, and there was basically nothing else to play after that, right, story wise at the time. So I was like, okay, that's really cool.
How dare you? Go to extremes. Get good.
Yeah, totally.
He had stamina or whatever it's called at the time.
Oh, that's right, stamina or whatever the hell that mechanic
was. It never had the
existed at
kind of
time.
end game get good vibe, and even more so in those days. It was a couple of people who we were in contact at Blizzard who had kind of reached out to us because they'd seen our videos and stuff. They were really into it as well, so it was nice talking to them about the story and stuff. But yeah, it was ESO that really was the one that stuck with me and that I carried on playing after that, because it was the one that was least like WoW in how it felt and how it controlled. And yeah, so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, because
exactly. Not the best game by any means, but it was different. It was the most different, so it felt good.
Yeah. I fell off of ESO because I was like, oh crap, I actually have to pay attention to this story. I kind of like it, and that's why I stopped playing it. Had I stuck with 14 my first time long enough, I probably would have also kind of come across that. But I bounced off 14 really, really early on because I tried it before Kyle had ever asked me to play it. And I started in Gridania, which I'm now on record for kind of tearing Gridania a new one. I think it's a really kind of standard ass forest, and it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And I was very surprised by all the load walls. So I was just like, I don't think this is for me.
Yeah, the load walls are they're a big deal. And I remember that was harder the second time I went back.
Yeah.
Because I kind of went back and I played through it again probably in about, 2019, maybe 2020.
Okay.
Just because I didn't have much else to do one time, and I was like, I enjoyed Final Fantasy 14. Maybe I should go back to that. But I couldn't get back into my old account because I'd forgotten my password, and
the Mog Station
I
is a
could not
thing.
recover my password. Yeah, it's the worst experience ever.
Mog Station
It's
is a little
like
rough.
it's so bad. I just could not get it. So I had to start a new account, and I played through it again. Didn't quite get to Heavensward this time. I was like, okay, I'm fine, whatever. But by this point, Bethan Walker was really kind of making a name for herself playing Alizé as a voice actor, and Bethan Walker is a childhood school friend of mine. Like we went to high school together. We were in drama class together. We did like extracurricular kind of drama class together. And like she's one of my genuine all-time best friends, right? And it was weird because she was doing this voice acting gig, which I wouldn't say she didn't care about it, obviously, but she had no idea what it was going to turn into. It was just a gig like any other at the time. And, I'm her friend who plays video games and plays MMOs, right? So she'd be like, hey, do you play Final Fantasy 14? Have you heard me in Final? And I'm like, oh, yeah, love it. It's so good. Oh, man. Oh, I love oh, it's so good. Oh, you're so good in that game. It's so amazing. I'm not playing it. I don't know.
I loved
So
you in the
always felt
small
like
amount
really,
of voice
bad.
cutscenes you had in Heavensward.
Yeah, exactly. I knew that at some point I was going to have to go back through and play it. And then when like the big kind of renaissance discovering of Final Fantasy 14 happened during Shadowlands, and so many, it almost felt cliche at the time to kind of start streaming Final Fantasy 14 if you play WoW a lot and going through the story and being amazed by the amazing storytelling and kind of, not that it doesn't deserve it, but because that's what everyone was doing, it just felt like you were playing not you were much later, but like when I did it, it felt like I was playing like a meta kind of stream game where
It's what
your
WoW streamers did.
Yeah, people would be very expectant for you to react a certain way in certain moments.
Well, I'm here to tell you that hasn't gone away. That still very much exists.
Oh yeah, I know it.
We got our
it's always been
freshest-
one of my problems streaming the game. To be
we got our
honest.
freshest batch of why didn't you cry at this part? You clearly have emotional issues. Those comments came recently. I will say
It's
they
really
are
funny.
few and
Yeah, I get the exact same. So I don't really cry at bits that people think I should cry at, but I get really into bits that other people don't care about. So
Same.
I'm like, is this not a meme? This should be a meme. This is amazing. Don't people love this guy? And people are like, no one cares about that guy.
It's
I'm
not
like,
the
I love
approved.
this guy.
It's not the
This guy's
approved person to
amazing.
love. It's not the approved person to love. Who's the guy that you love that people don't love? By the way, do you know?
Oh, dude, I like just random kind of like tradesmen and people like that.
Oh, so it'd be like Kyle with a Hoary Boulder. You love
Hoary
Hoary
Boulder. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Every time he shows up for me, I'm like, oh, great.
I love Harry Boulder.
Yeah.
Hoary Boulder. He's brilliant. Yeah, he's great, but he's a bit too mainstream for me. No, I prefer the more underground dudes. Yeah.
I've effed up. I've invited a bigger hipster than Kyle to the podcast.
No, but it was fun.
Yeah.
So then I did kind of, I thought, well, if there's ever a time to go back and play through Final Fantasy XIV again, like this is the time. But I didn't want to stream it right from the very beginning, just in case I didn't like it, and I didn't want that to happen on stream because I value my life too much, frankly.
Yeah, I didn't plan to not stream Realm Reborn, and I'm glad I didn't because like it's slow as shit.
You get a sense
to
of
start.
ownership.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
and I don't.
I think Realm Reborn gets an unfair rap. I think Realm Reborn is just fine. I think it's
Stormblood
great,
gets an unfair rap. I think Realm Reborn gets
Oh, yeah,
exactly the
that
rap
too.
it
Yeah,
deserves.
I think every expansion is a banger, and like I started playing it again just in private, and I bopped through Realm Reborn. It was easier to bop through then than it had been the first two times I'd done it. So I was like, okay, this is good. They've sped this up. This is excellent, cool. And
I'm glad you're here to talk about that then, because it's completely different than my experience.
oh really?
I don't read a ton. I didn't really start reading for fun until my 20s, and even then, it's like if I do 4 books in a year, that's a big year for me. Like that's a huge year. That's like I discovered the Hunger Games kind of year. But I was back on my reading shit. I had just discovered the Locked Tomb series, which starts with Gideon the Ninth, if anyone's a fan of that. And so I was in this mindset where I just like bite off a little bit every night. I get cozy and I read a little bit. Help me fall asleep at night, like kind of settle my mind. And I started playing Realm Reborn like that. And eventually I got really invested and I looked forward to it. It was like my wind down. Every night I would like sit down and do like 2 hours of Realm Reborn, and then I'd go to sleep. Before I knew it, I gave a shit about every character except for Alpha now, and it was great.
And nothing changed. Yeah.
Oh no, I love Alphino now, but oh man,
okay,
Realm
okay.
Reborn, I wanted to kick that little kid so bad in his exposed midsection.
But this is like that was one of the things that I really liked about one of the things I really connected with Final Fantasy XIV was I didn't like Alphino. I found him really annoying. I felt like he'd been kind of promoted above his station and he was a bit of a Nepo baby. And usually that would make me not like him, but the game knew that too. Like that wasn't a mistake. They weren't presenting a character that they wanted to be likable in an unlikable way by mistake. Like dude's an idiot and makes huge mistakes, like sets up a whole gang that turns on him and beats him up, and like is bad at the job that he's decided he deserves, and that's the story that the game tells, and that's actually really cool because I was not expecting that, because it's like usually if there's an annoying character who's kind of made themselves important in the story, I'm supposed to like them, and when I don't, I'm like, well, this is stupid. I hate this guy. He sucks.
Like an entire expansion to him learning from the mistake of Realm Reborn. Like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And everyone just like making fun of him the whole time, like everything he did. And that's the thing. So I was playing Realm Reborn in private, and even though they had sped it up a lot, man, you never get used to those like 80 quests or something, or 150 quests after the first set of credits, in the patch content.
Realm Reborn
following them down the list, and you're like, I got how long to go? Wait, Moonbreeder's not even for another like 20 quests. What's going on? You never quite get used to that. But Heavensward was even better than, and I loved Heavensward first time I played through it, but it was even better on my third account. Like the second time I probably played through it. And I loved it. I'd forgotten stuff like the campfire scene, which I think is like a seminal moment in MMO kind of history. And
I think that is
one of the most influential kind of scenes in MMO history. I think it's like so good.
It's when
and the whole vibe of that expansion is just so great. And I loved it. I loved every moment of Heavensward.
The campfire is when I realized I actually cared. Like properly cared. I was like, oh, characters just talking around a campfire and I am leaning in. I'm like, okay, this game's got me.
Totally. Yeah, you and like a million other people, I'd imagine. And going into Stormblood then. And it was kind of during Stormblood, after the main story quest of Stormblood into the patch content of Stormblood, that I was like, well, I think I'm really enjoying this. And I just want to be playing it, so I might as well start streaming it as well. And we even like released a few videos about Final Fantasy XIV on our channel at the time as well.
Because it was around that time. I think I want to say a month or so after your Salvo 14 videos was when I was like properly getting into it. And I think I pitched you and never heard back on it. I'm like, hey, Tally, wouldn't it be hilarious if we put out one more episode of WoW Killer, but it was just about Final Fantasy 14 and we didn't address the fact that we never mentioned WoW on the whole episode? I still think that would have been hilarious, and I'm only...
Hey, dude, we had a sponsor lined up for it as well. We should have done it. I'm sorry.
That's right. We were still getting hit up by sponsors for WoW Killer like a half a year after it went off the air.
I watched your video. It was the Praetorium's too long. Right?
Wasn't the curious case of the Praetorium.
Yeah, about how it's all unskippable and it's unforgivable.
No, wait. Sorry, that was it was analyzing Praetorium far too thoroughly because it is bad.
Yeah.
They changed it, but they're still.
They did change it, and they did all my ideas. Now, I'm not saying they watched the video, but so again and again.
I will say, if they listen to you, then you're at fault for stripping out some of the best Gaius lines, so actually I am mad at you.
I look, the way I fixed Praetorium, I fixed it without cutting a single line, because that's the thing I wanted to do. I was like, we cut this without cutting a single line, and I cut something like 8 or 10 minutes out of it, and the gameplay ratio to kind of cutscene ratio was greatly increased. My fix was great, but we approached it like we did any WoW video. And exactly like any WoW video we would do, like the exact same vibe, the exact same style. And that style is what people call us shills for in World of Warcraft. And we were absolute haters in the world of Final Fantasy XIV for that video.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating. Very fascinating. But yeah.
I think that's interesting.
So was it like to theorize on that?